I think we'll get started. Okay, so I've prepared a little presentation, which is based really on the overall picture of what's happening, but it's specific reference to the nature guide sector. So those of you that are involved in other guiding sectors like the adventure or the culture guiding sector, pretty much the same process is going ahead with those sectors as well. All right, so on the agenda today, I'm just going to touch on the policy and why we're sitting in the situation that we are in. And then I'm going to go into the background, what has been done to date, where FGASA has been involved, what the future looks like in terms of these qualifications, how the assessments will work, what does it mean for industry, and then if there's anything that anybody else wants to bring up right at the end, we can by all means chat about any other items you might have or questions around it. So I'll just stop periodically after each slide, but please just bear with me in terms of noticing if your little hand is up while I'm doing the presentation, but please just jump in anyway and just interrupt me if you have a question. All right, so kicking off straight away, in 2021, a policy was issued by the government to inform everybody that all qualifications within the FGASA framework, the skills programs, would expire. And this policy has actually now been implemented. And what that means is that any skills program that existed within the FGASA framework no longer exists in that framework. And the whole strategy is to move these skills programs into the new structure within the QCTO, which is where the qualifications would be held. And so you can imagine there's lots of sectors that are affected here. It's not only the guiding sector, it's any skills program that existed within that structure. And you can see below, this is the screenshot. So if you go onto the SAQA website to look for the current guiding programs, they indicate that they have already expired. So the future guide qualifications will sit within the occupational sector. And I'll explain a little bit more about that as we go along. So the current skills programs will run until June 2024. And that means that all learners wishing to sign up and train existing FGASA accredited programs must be registered in the FGASA administrative system as well as the FGASA system by June 2024. These learners will then have 3 years to complete the program or to complete the certification process. So we urge all employers to plan for this in their skills development plans and encourage all existing guides wishing to study the next level to note this timeline. So what does this actually mean? So today it was really with the focus from an employer perspective, but I do see we have other people that have logged on, guides and et cetera, so I'll speak to include those as well. But basically what it means is any new person wanting to study the current program, so that is the entry level, the NQF2 Nature Site Guide, you want to come into the system, or you've got guides that want to come and start off at the entry level, they've got a year to register with FGASA if they choose to do the FGASA program. So they've got a year to register. Once that administration is in, the learning process will start, and they will then have 3 years from June next year to actually become certified. So that means the assessments, the theory exams, the practical assessments, et cetera, would then be taken over a 3-year period so that they can complete the qualification. For existing guides that are already in the system, so say you might have guides that are already at entry level, they now want to improve their qualification either up to field guide or to trails guide. They would also need to make sure that FGASA is notified and that they've registered to do that next level. And they too will have 3 years to complete that program. So again, it just means that there is another form that needs to be filled in. We need to get you into the CASETA system, and then that learning process can continue. We also urge anyone that is already in that, say, working towards a trails guide or working towards field guide, that's already doing that, please make sure you contact the FGASA office. Let's make sure that your admin is in with CASETA, because there's a brand new application that needs to be done for that, so that we can make sure that you're in the CASETA system and registered. Are there any questions around this?
Just a quick one there. I just want to understand. So if I'm already a field guide and I'm doing NQF level 4 studying, do I need to register for CASETA again, or I've done it once, is it fine?
Okay, so if you haven't, in the past, there was only one application to CASETA, regardless of whether you were at a 2 or a 4. But things have changed over the last couple of years. There needs to be a new application. So if you're moving from 2 to 4, we need a new application there. If you're already in QF4 and you just, and that's already done and you're already registered with CASETA, then there's no problem with that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and it's really a matter of getting into the SIM system on CASETA, which is what FGASA does. That is the admin role we play. We submit your IDs, etc., and there's signatures that are involved, and then we keep track of your portfolio of evidence on this journey. So it just means that anybody in the system, we need to make sure the admin's in by June next year. I mean, you might complete it before then, but if it's going to take longer than what you anticipate, it's got to be done by June next year, and then we've got another year after, 3 years after that to complete the process.
Michelle, I have a question.
Yeah.
Who is the poor soul that we need to email? It's going to be overwhelmed with all these applications.
Okay, so we have got a full-time dedicated lady. Her name is Hermia, and her email address is catheta@fgasa.org.za. And if you're unsure, not sure, haven't done it, want to do it, she's the lady just to check whether you're actually in the system already. If it's a brand new, so you want to purchase the materials, register, and get into the process, then that can be anyone of anybody at the office can help you. We've got membership, or, we've got, there's various people that can help you. But if it's CASETA specific, then it's Hermia.
Perfect, thank you.
All right. So just as head guides or employers, if you're not sure, want to make sure everybody's in, just give us a little list and we can check that for you, no problem, to make sure that we can, just check that they're there and that things are in progress or get submitted in time. All right. In terms of the FGASA specific qualifications, so I'm talking anything above field guide or trails guide. Remember, that's where accreditation programs stop in the formal system. So anything beyond an NQF4 does not get affected. So the FGASA career development non-credit bearing qualifications, I'm talking about professional field guides, SKS, professional trails guides, becoming facilitators, assessors, mentors, etc., that is not affected at all, because these are not actually registered on any qualification framework at this point. So if you already are a field guide and you're wanting to keep going on your development to professional, this doesn't affect you at all, because that admin is kept. There's no registrations needed for that. All right, so what is going to happen is that these skill programs will now be managed and administered by the QCTO, which is the Quality Council for Trades and Occupations, and they will then oversee all qualifications in totality. So their role is that there are occupational qualifications that respond to South Africa's needs. So in terms of guides, if you think about guides where they currently sit as skills programs within the CASITA framework, what is really great is that guides now will sit in the occupational sector with proper occupational part qualifications or qualifications. So they will actually be in the occupational sector. Currently, they don't exist there, nature guides. They don't exist at all within the occupational sector. So this is really great for guides going forward. And also what the QCTO's role is to ensure that all occupations in South Africa are actually represented in their framework. So they manage the qualifications. They also manage the framework where the sub-frameworks sit, and I'll show you a diagram in a bit of how this is done. Before the occupational qualifications can be recognized with the QCTO, they need to be registered with SAQA. So that is the quality assurer in South Africa, and they actually register the qualification, and then it goes and sits in with CASITA and gets managed there. So the QCTO's role as well, and I'm sure some of you might have received surveys in your emails from CASITA or the QCTO. They really have been proactive to get things out there to say, what does industry need? What are the skills that are needed? So that's really important in this process going forward, to make sure that the tourism sector has the occupations it needs and that they are responding to the sector. All right, so in terms of how this who reports to who and how all that structure works, you've got the minister at the top with SAQA and the QCTO reporting there, and then you've got the National Qualifications Framework. So the National Qualifications Framework is the comprehensive system where your occupations and qualifications are classified, and they are responsible for the maintenance and the quality assurance of the standards. So what that means is, if you look at this table, on the left-hand side, you've got all your school levels. So from 1 up to 4, your matric would be your national certificate. So that's your general educational levels there. And then it goes up from 5 to 10 on the left. That is your higher education sector. And then your third sub-framework is your occupational sector, which is on the right-hand side. You'll see occupational framework. So these 3 frameworks make up the NQF, and the future guiding qualifications will sit, the process we're busy with right now will sit on the right-hand side in the occupational sector. And we'll get to that a little bit further on. We don't know, none of the work has formally been set out yet in terms of where this qualification will sit for guides. It all depends on what it is made up of, what the modules are, what the credits are allocated to those modules, and what the total credit bearing level will be. And that will decide, will it be a 4? Will it be NQF 5? Will it be NQF 3? We don't know at this point, but we do know it most likely will be higher than an NQF 2. All right, so what they do in this process is that they have to define what the job is. So we've been involved, our partners, other providers, employers, different stakeholders have been involved in a series of workshops in Pretoria, and we've had a lot of discussion. And what really has been brilliant is that the three sectors, the nature sector, adventure sector, and the cultural sector of guides, have gotten together and actually had really good discussions about this process going forward. And it's really good. It's brought the sector together, and guides are pulling together. So those 3 sectors are really pulling together and deciding or contributing I should say, in terms of what is needed and how this could all work out in the future. So what would happen is that groups would look at it and go, okay, well, what is the job? So what do guides do? FGASA has also been involved in a series of online workshops with employers, and we've been engaging with employers saying, what do you need? What skills do your guides need? We hope and like to think that we have a good indication of what that is, but we want to improve things. So we need to make sure that we're giving employers and the sector guides with skills that will make a difference in the workplace. So new qualifications are being scoped out and mapped across the tourism sector. And this is not just for guides. This is for the whole for the tourism sector. So it's for receptionists, it's for front office managers, chefs, all of those different jobs that are in the tourism sector are affected. So it's not only the guiding sector. All right, and as I've already said, this is managed by the QCTO, and there has to be a quality assessment partner. So in order for this whole process, once it's done, to be quality assured, QCCTA has been appointed as that assessment quality partner. So we're already familiar with QCCTA and their systems and all of that. So that is really positive for us. But going forward, they have been appointed as the QCTO's quality assessment partner to ensure that the processes are quality assured according to the standards that would be set. All right, so with all these workshops that we've had, as I said, we got the three sectors got together, and what was definitely positive at the end of this was that there's certain generic modules that apply to all three sectors. So whether you're a guide in the tourist sector as a tourist guide category as a culture guide or a heritage guide or a adventure guide or nature guide, there are generic modules that apply. And there was very much the thinking along the lines that it would be great if guides coming into the future qualifications could do these generic modules, regardless of which sector they would be in. And the thinking also is that there needs to be portability. So if you had a guide that started out to be a nature guide and wanted to then top up and go and do something in the adventure sector, that it would merely be a recognition sometimes or in certain instances of credits that they already had. So that is definitely a positive for guides, is that there is portability, things could be recognized. And if they've done the generic modules, for example, let's say basic South African knowledge, that would be recognized regardless of which sector you were in or moved within. The other positive thought that came out of this was that guides need to be able to move around across Southern Africa. So there may be more freedom for them to move around regardless of what province they did their qualification in, which is also positive. So that also gives guides more freedom to move around. And then it would just be dependent on where they ended up. They would then be, do a little orientation or do extra in-house training on the specific area if they move from a totally different biome. So that was the quite a positive after those sessions. Some of the generic modules are, we already include that in our stuff, in our materials, things on communications, researching, looking after your guests, legal understanding of guiding, how to manage your guests, basic knowledge on South Africa, some admin, first aid, etc. So those would constitute, and these are just ideas, these are not definite. These were kind of the main topics that were discussed. So that was quite interesting there. Naturally, you couldn't send a guide into go and conduct a safari experience, for example, with only generic modules. There needs to be specialization. So that would come next. They would then link it to the skills that are needed to operate in a safari context, for example, or even in adventure. You know, you might have a guide starting in nature as a marine guide and then wants to go into scuba diving. They would then go and get the top up on the adventure side. Any questions at this point? Okay, good. I'll carry on. Then in those discussions, these preliminary talks and workshops that we had, it became clearer to us when we started off. We weren't sure, you know, what is this occupational qualification going to look like? Is a guide going to have to do everything to achieve the qualification? And as we got into these workshops, by the final workshop, it was quite clear. The QCTO indicated that there could be part qualifications, there could be electives, and so that was a very positive move. And these were some of the agreements that were in those workshops. These are not definite, but these were some of the agreements that were discussed. And also the overall category name, that was also just, you know, discussed at detail. Is it going to be called, are we going to stick to nature guide? Are we going to call the main category field guides? Will they be ecotourism guides? Those were all the ideas that were put forward. So we don't know what name is going to be chosen for the overall category name, but we do know that those are some of the terms that have been discussed, and that there are part qualifications and electives. So that is quite positive. And then also on the tracker side, which is exciting, is that you know, there's many organizations and people already operating in the field of trackers, that trackers deserve to have their own occupation. And so this is very positive. So FGASA is also involved in that process with our partners, and we've written a letter to the QCTO and to CATHSETA saying, listen here, we would love to see occupation for trackers also existing in this new framework. So that is quite a long road to go, but that is great news for trackers. They deserve the recognition. And this is not just trackers that work in the safari sector. It would obviously then have generic modules, and then they could get to a point where they could choose their route. Do they go into the safari industry? Do they go into the APU industry, or research or conservation? Those are the thoughts around there. So that's also just preliminary workshops and chats that we've had. Gabriella?
Hi, yes, Michelle, just wanted to know, would this mean that trackers and guides would have their own OFO codes?
Absolutely, yes. So at the moment, the tracker does exist as a skills program within the CATHSETA framework, but we are pushing for it to exist on that with its own code. Yes.
Lovely, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, so what will this new format look like? There will be no unit standard format qualifications in future. Each unit standard based skills program will be replaced by a format in the QCTO with a code in the occupational index, and that format will be composed of theoretical, practical, and workplace experienced modules. There are full occupational certificates and part qualifications with electives and skills programs. So looking at the structure, so theoretically, we're looking at a new template on how these qualifications will be written up. So we will use the unit standards as we know them right now, and they'll be replaced with these three broad categories. And Jonathan, you can jump in here, but from what I can gather, it was sort of a third knowledge, third practical, and a third of workplace, and then top up of the balance to any one of those sectors.
Yes, that's usually around about a third each year.
Yeah. So if you look at just in terms of, just from a FGASA perspective, in terms of how we've structured things to date, we've always had the knowledge, we've always had the practical activities, and definitely our delivery partners have had the workplace module into it. So moving into the future, that's definitely going to be more structured. And we'll chat about that a little bit later, but integrating with the workplace is going to be really important in the way forward. And workplace is not necessarily working. This could be simulated, it could be, that type of environment as well. It's not necessarily working, but they need to be exposed to workplace scenarios. So what does this mean for future or for existing guides? So we submitted a letter. We joined hands with two other big organizations, one from the adventure sector and one from the culture sector. And collectively, we wrote a letter to the NDT to please, give us confirmation as soon as possible as to what the transition plan is for guides that have their qualifications, and also to request that they remain valid into the future, so that they can register. And we are waiting final confirmation of this. But from what we can understand is that guides in future will retain their historical qualifications and will be able to renew their legal card going forward with those historical qualifications. We also are addressing the change with people like you and everybody in the industry so that we know and educating everybody what is happening, and also then just presenting what industry could be faced with. So into the future, new guides coming in. So remember, this is going to be after June 2024. And hopefully there will be a replacement qualification by then. We can discuss that because I think there are some challenges there that we really need to acknowledge. But into the future, anybody after June next year would then sign up for the new structure. And then into the future, those guides would take their certificate to the registrar and be registered with the QCTO certificate. So in future, registrars will accept two types of certificates, historic ones and then the new ones. And then guides into the future, if they want to swap over and move over an RPL into the new framework to get the new accreditation or certification, then there will be RPL opportunities to do that. That is definitely will be part of the process going forward. And we've already prepared for that process. Some of our team have qualified as practitioners for RPL, so that's good into the future. And so guides will have a choice whether they want to stick to what they have or whether they want to join in and move into the new structure. Any questions? I do want to mention here, we've had in our previous sessions, we had quite a few people just raising sort of a red flag there. What if there is no replacement qualification by June next year? I mean, I can't answer that. We're pretty confident that there will be a transition plan put together by the role players to make sure that training doesn't stop or opportunity doesn't stop for guides coming in. So as soon as we get confirmation, if there is any change, I will communicate that, but that is a real consideration. If you think of the timeline that is involved to get this qualification written up and scoped, we haven't even started the formal process yet. There needs to be public participation. There needs to be comment. There needs to be registration with SAQA. There's also a public participation role there. And then it comes back to the QCTO. So we are looking at quite a long period of time, definitely longer than 6 months. So we really are cutting it really fine, but we're confident that we will have a transition plan that will work for everybody. So what happens now is that as I said, we've had these informal sort of workshops that we've gotten together. We hope to be involved and play a part in the future formal workshops that will start. CASITA and the QCTO now appoint a consultant to manage this process, and a community of expert practitioners get appointed. During this time, various subject matter experts have already registered with the QCTO, and we've encouraged that. If there's anybody from a FGASA perspective who has that expert knowledge, we've encouraged them to register so that they can be part of this process going forward. So once this community of expert practitioners has been appointed, they will be the working group that will then write up and map out the structure of the occupation, and then the assessment processes that go with it. So that is quite exciting, but as I said, we're not there yet. We're hoping quite soon that will be that process will be started. And then once there's a qualification to apply for, we will then apply to the QCTO to become an accredited skills delivery partner, so that we are able to deliver the occupation. So looking to the process or the journey of learners in the future within the FGASA structure, as I said, we would apply to the QCTO, and then learners would have an opportunity to sign up and qualify, and they can do this in 2 ways. They can either go to one of the delivery partners that we have, or they can contact FGASA directly. And definitely the delivery of training, as we do already now, is a blended approach. We have many face-to-face training sites where guides can go and get trained on site within reserves or at delivery partner sites, or they are connected to places where they can practice and get into the field. And then there's also online opportunities. So there's various methodologies to make this accessible to guides. And I think we've come a long way on that, even with our delivery partners. There's some fantastic opportunities there. We've also put our materials online to make it more cost effective, et cetera, et cetera. So that is definitely the way forward. We've also are making sure that into the future that training is accessible, and that it doesn't become too costly for anybody. So that is important for us. What does it mean for our existing partners and facilitators? It means that there will be new criteria. You know, once this is scoped with the QCTO, there will be new criteria that we would need to adhere to, which would then mean that our delivery partners and assessors need to reapply to FGASA. There will be a service level agreement that would be set up, and we would then outsource the physical training that way. And we will also facilitate training opportunities for our facilitators and assessors. There are some criteria that they may need to meet. For example, facilitators need to do facilitators courses, and we will make sure that we provide some opportunity for our facilitators to do that. Looking to the facilitation and assessment process, how's that going to work for guides? So this is going to be quite a big change that will be implemented across the country, regardless of whether you're in the adventure sector or nature or culture. This is how it works. You've got on the left-hand side, if you look at your screen, you've got all the internal assessments that will be conducted and managed according to the quality assurance and the criteria as set by the QCTO. That will be done by FGASA and its partners on the left-hand side. That's all the internal assessment that takes place. These are obviously the facilitation of the learning, or it's all the little assignments, whatever is assessed in that process is done internally. So this is managed entirely by the service delivery partner. What then happens is that there's a statement of results, and that statements of results will be submitted from FGASA to the QCTO, and then an integrated, external integrated summative assessment will be triggered. So this is a big change. There's going to be a national exam set for all guides that go into this qualification, and they will all write this exam, the same exam. A note on that, the assessment, we're not at that point yet. Is it going to be theory? Is it going to be practical? Is it going to be a combination? We don't know. This will be up to the community of expert practitioners to work that out. So if you just imagine, if you can think of a simple way to understand this, if you think of your matric, throughout your year, your teachers and they collate all your assessments and your demos and assignments and orals and all your workplace tasks. That's all done within your school year. Your prelim marks, that gets taken into account. They then submit a statement of results to Umalusi, which does sit within the NQF framework, and then that triggers a matric exam. This is going to be the same principle of how this is conducted. Any questions there? Just on, some of the past discussions and presentations I've done over the last week, there've been a couple of questions raised around the practicality of this. How will this be delivered? How is it practically going to be delivered? How many times a year? Where will it be conducted? Who's going to do the assessments? All those questions we don't have at this point, but we are definitely going to be involved in the process, and we'll obviously have more clarity on that as we move forward. So that is how it's going to look into the future. It means then that, it's called the ESA. So the ESA is that final exam. Once they've achieved the ESA, that is their ticket to their certification, and then they can go and register to the registrar to get their legal guide status. Also in the ESA, there will be RPL opportunities as well for guides to come in. As I said, if you want to swap over from what you've got now into the future and want to go this route, there will be RPL opportunities. That all needs to be set up. So the learner journey, they'll start off on the left-hand side here. They will be entering the process of learning. All the internal, formative and summative assessments will take place. Statements of results go to the QCTO. The ESA is written. Competency is created from that based on the final assessment. They then get a QCTO certificate, provided that all the whole process has been verified, and then they legally go and register with the registrar to be able to operate as a guide. Okay, any questions there? I'm kind of at the end of this presentation on the current occupational qualification, and then I've just got 1 or 2 lines just on further options for guides in the future with FGASA. So is there anything anybody wants to ask on this current process into the future? Okay, good. It means everyone's on the same page, I hope. Okay, and then just to just put it out there, this has been on the cards for the last couple of years. We have applied to the Higher Education Department for a diploma in field guiding. We await feedback on that, but we've done a lot of work on this and have our structure all figured out already. We're just waiting for feedback on this into the future. What this means for employers is that there'll be 2 routes for guides in the future. They could either go and get a diploma, or they can go the occupational route. So it just gives guides an option. So if there are guides that are out there that want to go the academic route and they've got 3 years to be able to do this, that is the way that they could go and apply for a loan. They could get a loan to study, and it also places them quite well within that 18-21 time frame, which gives them enough time to complete their qualifications. This as well is going to be very affordable. It's going to be a blended approach. And again, we will partner with our delivery partners to deliver sections of this or parts of this qualification. So this is quite exciting, we believe. It also gives guides that have done nature conservation diplomas, etc., the opportunity to port and get recognition for some of those modules. We've tried to make sure that there is some cross-pollination there with the structure of the modules. So that's very exciting for the future. And we just wait. This is not in the immediate future. This is quite a long process. So we just wait for progress on that. Okay. And then just to end off, just a request or an appeal to the employer sector. Start thinking about this into the future. There needs to be opportunities for to support this process. Learners and guides need internship opportunities. We're always exploring partnership. We already have a lot of partnerships in the industry. Our delivery partners have partnerships with employers, and we're very grateful for that. We all know guides need time in the field. They need time to be able to get their skill levels up. And we would really appreciate further collaboration on that. And, there's lots of opportunities out there. We just need to chat about them and collectively, give you what you need in terms of guiding skills. And the only way we can do that is by, employers continuing to come to the party. So thank you to everybody who already does that. I know there's always practical challenges of space and accommodation and things like that. But if there are any opportunities that you need us to be involved in or pitch for, we're happy to collaborate on that and appreciate those opportunities to do that. So thank you to everybody. That's my presentation for this morning. And it's now open session. If there's any other questions, please raise them here. Let's chat about it. And if you're not unsure about anything, don't want to chat about it here, you can mail me. But keep a lookout. We'll keep you updated into the future. And we're available. There is time on our side into the future, although there's deadlines, but we're quite confident that this process will be implemented effectively. Anything anybody wants to add? Everybody's very quiet. Dave, Thank you. All right, so just to repeat, on the FGASA side, the email address is Hermia. I'll pop it in the chat. It's Hermia it's FGASA@FGASA.org.za. And I'll just put all the email addresses in here. Let's do that quickly. Just checking if there's any other questions here. Yeah. Okay, no other questions. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining today. I hope it was informative. Please don't panic about the situation. The tourism industry as a whole is pushing for professionalization of the industry. This is a parallel process that is running. And it's going to be very, very exciting for guides, and it really, really is a positive thing.